I didn't know a person could cry this hard without dying. I cried nonstop for a month solid. This happened a few years ago. I'm fine now. But at the time, this completely blindsided me, and this turned out to be the event that kicked off my spiritual journey. I need to provide some context here so what I'm about to explain next will make sense. I'm a member of the Kink community. It is a rich part of my life, and I've had a lot of emotional and spiritual experiences in it. But that journey is not the subject of today's story. This just happens to be one of the times where my kink journey and my spiritual journey intersect. Kinbaku is the ancient Japanese art form of rope bondage. It involves connection, trust, and surrender. My rope partner is a friend of mine, and after we had a beautiful, intimate session, I went home feeling like I was completely fine. There was nothing amiss about me at all. But looking back now, I can see that I wasn't actually fine. A couple of days later, she sent me a writing. It was the most beautiful thing that I had ever read. By the time I'd gotten a quarter of the way through, I was crying. And by the time I had finished it, I was completely full on bawling. Her writing talked about how she felt the first time that she was tied, the connection she felt to her rope partner, the bliss and the trust and the surrender. And these things were some of the exact same things that I was feeling at the time. After about a half hour, I decided I need to snap myself out of this hyper-emotional state of crying. So I decided to go to the gym, and if I lifted and put down a bunch of heavy things, I would maybe snap back to normal. It worked for a little while, but eventually my workout had to end. And when I went back home and it went into bed, I broke down into tears again. For the next couple of days, I was an absolute emotional mess. Luckily, I work from home. When I was focusing on work, I was okay. I was emotionally regulated. But several times throughout the day, I would burst down into tears unexpectedly. And I had no idea what I was crying about. Subdrop is an unguarded, vulnerable emotional state that can happen after experiences of trust and surrender. It can last for days, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was experiencing it right then. On the third day, I thought I had snapped back to normal. I was not bursting into tears several times a day, but I had returned to a new normal. I was more emotionally stable, but I was clearly changed. I wouldn't break down in tears for no reason. Crying still happened. It was just not as frequently. My friend recognized what I was going through. She explained to me that many people cry when they're tied in rope, and that it is catharsis, not trauma. I understood what she meant, but I still didn't understand how much was unfolding. She also helped me see a deeper truth. A few months earlier, I discovered that I had aphantasia. When I discovered it, it was fascinating, but it didn't seem to alter my life in any way. But as I investigated what aphantasia was, I came across something else, SDAM. SDAM stands for Severely Deficient Autobiographical Memory. Essentially, my long-term memory is garbage. And this discovery was more concerning, but beyond intellectually knowing that something was wrong, it didn't really emotionally hit me. After a couple of days of crying uncontrollably, I started to understand what I was crying about. It wasn't rope. It wasn't the writing. I was crying because my memories were being ripped from me. My whole life was disappearing, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it. Pieces of me were gone for good. And this was something that my friend could see before I did. She saw that everything that I was experiencing, I was viewing through this lens, and that it wasn't healthy. I had turned it into an identity instead of just a condition. It was during this time that an emotional bomb went off in my brain, and some shrapnel ended up hitting my friend. And without going into any details, I'll just say that I dumped a lot of raw, heavy emotions on her, and I was afraid I was going to scare her away. Luckily, this didn't happen. And one night when I was lying in bed, I cried harder than I had ever cried before. Every single muscle in my body was contracting at the same time, and my whole body was tingling with the exertion. And there were two thoughts going through my mind at the same time. Both of these were emotionally absolutely true, but I knew that one of them had to be false. The first thought was that if my friend had ever tied me again, I would break down in tears and cry nonstop until the moment I died. No other reality was possible. Emotionally, this was completely true, though intellectually I knew that this couldn't be true, and that was comforting. The second thought was, if she ever tied me again, that there'd be more emotional shrapnel that I would hit her with and hurt her. And unlike the first thought, I didn't have the luxury of knowing that this was absolutely false. It took me 2 hours to be able to fall asleep that night. Over time, these bouts of spontaneous crying became less and less. And about 3 weeks later, I realized that I hadn't burst into tears in 3 days. I genuinely believed that I was healed. If you had asked me at the time, I would have told you I was 95% back to the way I was before. But then, a few days later, I saw something. There was a video of a man using an app to take a photo of his grandfather and animate it so that the picture moved. And he showed this photo to his mother. And when his mother saw her dad move in the photo, she broke down in tears. And this brought water and tears to my eyes. That's when I realized I wasn't back to 95%. I was changed. Before all of this, before I discovered I had aphantasia and SDAM, I thought that I had my emotions under control. I was pretty much always an 8 out of 10 on the happiness. Nothing ever really bothered me. In fact, I thought that emotions were a weakness that other people could use to exploit or manipulate you. What I didn't realize was that I had an emotional logjam inside me. And this event broke that. And now, raw, unprocessed emotions were streaming into my system like never before. Emotions that I've never learned how to deal with. I wasn't emotionally in control. I was emotionally numb. After this experience, I've changed in several ways. Before, I'd be the type of person who would only ever listen to the 3-hour podcast. Afterwards, I found that I'd be more swayed by music. And I discovered that I liked to write and that the words came easily. And I could open up and be emotional and vulnerable. And this came easily. And I began to be able to connect with people in a way that I never could before. I felt more alive, more human. Even after this month of healing, I was still not the same person I was before. Something fundamental had changed. I was no longer breaking down into tears for no apparent trigger, but I had opened up a part of myself that had previously been hidden. There was this vast ocean of sadness inside me, and if I encountered something that was even a little bit sad, I could get sucked into this ocean and completely overwhelmed. A large part of my journey was figuring out how to deal with these intense emotions, especially this sadness that would overwhelm me. At the time, I had thought that enduring this month of pain was all it took. But I realized I was not near the end of my journey. I was only at the very beginning. This breakdown didn't break me. It opened me up. And everything that came after, my emotional growth, my spiritual journey, my writing, my ability to connect with people on a deeper level, it all traces back to this one event. This is where everything truly began. I'm still on this path, and if you want to walk along it, you can subscribe here, or you can read about what I've written on my Substack. Thank you for being here with me.